and welcome to BSE Market Guide, the show to help you match your goals with the money you will make. Today we'll discuss financial planning with Karthik Zaveri, Director at Transcend Consulting. Karthik, thanks again for being with us.
Pleasure.
Let's start with a basic question. What is financial planning?
You know, there are lots of connotations. People have various sorts of understanding about what financial planning is. But very simply put, it's like a little mathematical strategy. It deals with numbers. Very simply put, it tells you where you are standing today, what all you want to achieve, and vis-a-vis what you want to achieve, what are your possibilities. Very simple. Now, upon deciding the amount of money you've got, the kind of goals you have, then somebody helps you make a strategy. You do some calculations. Some of them are simple, some of them are not so simple. But having said that, when you put together, you get a holistic picture, and this picture tells you exactly how some of the future years are likely to pan out. So it's some sort of a roadmap. Now, it's obviously better to have a roadmap rather than not have anything and just do things by the instinct and by the hour and by the season of the prevailing season. So therefore, I think it's a very good and a robust guideline.
Most families, till especially a generation ago, got by quite comfortably without financial planning.
That's right.
Why do we need it now?
You know, a lot of things have changed. I mean, let's not talk about a generation. Let's just go about 15 years ago. PPF rates are 12%. You know, the bond markets used to give us about 12-13%. Corporate deposits, fixed deposits were pretty high. India was a different India at that time, and we were not as progressive as we are today, though whatever you might think of the economic environment and so on and so forth. But what's happened is, on one side, needs have multiplied. The sources of income have gone up, but they have not multiplied in the same sort of proportion. There was a time we didn't have to spend, maybe 1,000 rupees on a mobile phone and an internet connection. But today, the bare minimum anybody spends 1,000 rupees. So there is new expenditures that have come in people's lives. Because fixed interest instruments gave a sort of a fixed rate of return and needs were smaller, inflation was under control and not as volatile as it is now, things were okay. Our parents could happily manage their affairs. So even if you have a pensioner right now who's maybe getting a superannuation from an LIC, he's still making about 8%, 7%, that kind of an annuity. By the time you and I retire, we'll be at 2% and 3%. That's what makes everything so much more complicated. So the need to beat the inflation or to have inflation plus returns is so much more pronounced now than it was ever before. And which is why this entire shift to doing something more scientific, doing something more organized, identifying where cash flows are going, and because needs are multiplying. You know, children need to do more things, we want to do more things, holidays, retirement, exposure. There's just so much more that we have on our agenda and plate, and which is why the need for doing something more
so you need to divide that basket among a lot more things. Now tell me something, how early does financial planning start?
Well, going by the general wisdom, if you can start it as soon as you start earning, well and good.
Okay.
But otherwise, often I tell people that, you want to start, and people have a lot of aspirations that they want to sort of fulfill. So we say, well, okay, 2-3 years, do what you want. But the latest time by which you should start planning is about the time you want to have a family. Ideally, if you start by the time you get married, great. Even if you've not done by the time you're married, if you're planning to have a child, maybe a year before that, from the time you conceive the thought that you want to have a child, maybe that's a great starting point. And if you then delay, then you're actually, of course, playing with time.
Now, when one starts their earliest job, you're saying that it's a good idea, it's wise to start financial planning.
That's
but
right.
You have a whole set of aspirations. You want a nice car,
right.
You want to hang out with friends, you want international holidays maybe, maybe you want to buy a house, in your hometown. But you don't really know where to begin and how much to allocate and whether you would want all those goals, say, 3 years from today.
That's right.
So how do you start saving money without really knowing that it is a goal, it is an aspiration at the moment, not an agenda?
That's right. So to people who are really young, say about early 20s, mid 20s, and that's the section that we're talking about. So what we advise this section of people is, fine, let your, play with your aspirations, fulfill them, do what you have to, buy a car, go for your international holiday, do what you have to. But in addition to what you're doing, try and at least put away 20% of your money. And what you do is, we are not thinking of a goal. Now, if you like a fixed deposit, do that. If you like a recurring deposit, do it. If you like gold, do it. If you like a mutual fund SIP, and if you don't mind a little bit of volatility, just have patience, do that. So whatever it is, just get into the habit of putting away some money aside.
Okay.
So what will happen is, in 3-4 years, 5 years, you'll be pleasantly surprised that you've got a few lakhs behind you.
Okay.
Just out of nothing. And once you have your family and responsibilities responsibilities come upon you, you feel so much more better, better prepared to sort of take on those responsibilities because you've got a backup and you've seen the results and the benefits. So even if you don't make too much of money, let's say a fixed deposit gives you 8%. So even if you've not made so much, it's okay because you know at least I've got these 5 lakhs behind me or 4 lakhs behind me. It gives you a sense of, you know, fulfillment, gives you a sense of pride, so it gives you a sense of backup that, you know, if something really bad were to happen, I've got money. I don't have to think about how will I, you know, feed my family in the next 6 months if I lose a job. So that's where this sort of a thing really plays out in the early years.
The first thought that comes to one's mind is whatever money you're making, what percentage of that should you target as a saving or a corpus, something that you're putting away for a rainy day?
Normally I like to advise 20 to 25%. Of course, if you are, you know, earning more and if you can do more, superb. But the whole idea is as soon as you get your salary that hits your account, if you can just take a fifth of that and put it aside, you know, and then do whatever you want to do in the early years, because you still not decide on what goals you want to have. You want to buy a house, sure, but where will you buy the house? You know, is that sensible that you will buy a house? So, you know, you might be living in Calcutta, you come for a job to Delhi, why would you want to buy a house in Chennai? You know, that sort of a thing. So is there utility in doing what you want to do? So by the time you crystallize on all these thoughts, may as well just put away some 20-25% of money aside. If you want to learn more about it, maybe do 2 assets, maybe do 3 assets. Don't do too much of complicated stuff. Don't buy complex insurance policies. You know, buy a simple health insurance, life insurance, and, you know, just do your investment. Buy the gold, buy this SIP or whatever you want. Do something simple. Get into the habit of putting away a fifth of your money aside.
Okay, so that's a discipline as well, which will serve you well in the long term. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, how do you calculate what your goal could cost you to achieve and how much you should be putting aside for it? Stay with us on BSE Market Guide.